Bungie isn't failing because they've lost their magic. They're failing because they're trying to sell a niche nightmare to a mass market audience. Marathon isn't a bad game. It's a high-friction collision between elite-tier design and corporate-tier expectations. And in that crash, nobody wins. We've seen the trailers, the neon-soaked aesthetic, the sleek meta vibes, the return of a legendary IP. But beneath that coat of paint lies an extraction shooter, a genre defined by loss, frustration, and a vertical learning curve. The industry narrative is that Marathon is in trouble because of leadership shifts or delays. But that's a surface-level read. The real rot is deeper. Marathon is a structural contradiction, a project built on the assumption that you can take the most punishing loop in gaming and scale it to a 10 million player audience. Let's look at the ROI math. When Sony spent $3.6 billion on Bungie, they weren't buying a studio. They were buying a live service engine. Marathon is the first true test of that engine. The bet was simple. Take the Bungie feel, the best-in-class gunplay and world building, and plug it into the high-retention model of an extraction shooter. In a boardroom, this looks like a slam dunk. You have high-stakes, gear-driven progression, and a gameplay loop that theoretically lasts forever. It's the ultimate retention play. But there's a delta, a massive gap between a retention loop and a player experience. Bungie didn't just bet on a game. They bet that the average gamer is ready to embrace pain as a primary mechanic. Here's what that friction actually feels like. You spend 30 minutes looting. You finally get something valuable. You're heading to extract, heart racing. And then, you die to someone you never saw. Everything's gone. That's the core loop. And for hardcore players, that's the appeal. But for everyone else, that's the moment they uninstall. That is the friction. In games like Escape from Tarkov, that friction is the product. The cruelty is the point. But Marathon is a AAA project with a AAA budget. It needs the Destiny crowd. It needs the Call of Duty crowd. When those players hit the gear loss wall, they don't see a hardcore challenge. They see a waste of time. The onboarding for an extraction shooter is notoriously brutal. You have to learn maps, ammo types, and extract locations. Bungie is trying to smooth out those edges to keep the mass market from churning. But every time you sand down an edge in an extraction shooter, you lose the tension that makes the genre work. You're left with a game that is too punishing for the casuals, but too diluted for the hardcore. This is where the model breaks. Live service games live or die on early churn. If a player loses their gear 3 times in their first hour and quits, the long-term retention model collapses. Marathon is a niche design requiring mass market patience. But the mass market has no patience, not in 2026, not when there are a dozen other free-to-play dopamine hits a click away. Bungie is caught in a pincer movement. To justify the budget, they need millions of players. To keep those millions, they have to lower the stakes. But if they lower the stakes, it's not an extraction shooter anymore. It's just a sweaty, objective-based PvP game with extra steps. The contradiction is terminal. You cannot have a high-stakes loss mechanic and mass market appeal in the same box. One will always kill the other. Marathon isn't an isolated incident. It's a symptom. The industry is obsessed with designing for retention before they've actually earned the player's interest. We saw it with Conquered. We saw it with Suicide Squad. Publishers are building forever games that people only want to play for 5 minutes. They are so focused on the end state, the battle passes, the skins, the 5-year roadmap, that they forget the start state. If the first 10 hours are a high-friction grind that feels like a second job, most players won't even see your innovative endgame. You are building a skyscraper on a foundation of sand. Marathon is trying to be the Tarkov killer, but it's fighting a war on 2 fronts. It's fighting the complexity of its own genre and the gravity of its own budget. Marathon won't fail because it's bad. The movement will be crisp. The art will be breathtaking. It will fail because Bungie, and the industry at large, has forgotten that stakes require investment, and you cannot force a mass-market audience to invest in a game that starts by taking everything away from them. Marathon is a technical marvel built for an audience that might not exist. It's a high-friction dream in a low-attention world. The meta isn't just changing, it's broken, and until developers stop prioritizing retention metrics over player friction, we're going to keep seeing these neon-colored shipwrecks. But hey, at least the trailers looked good. I'll see you in the next one.